Hey, welcome to the first Crossroads episode of 2025, and I hope you all had a good New Year's Day, folks. Now look, first of all, the company Meta that's behind Facebook, Instagram, Meta has announced it's going to bring AI-generated characters to Facebook in a move to increase engagement on this whole platform. And you as the users are going to be able to engage with all these AI bots. Aren't you excited? Now, this is raising some concerns, though, over what's being referred to as the dead internet theory, which I'll be getting into. And also, speaking of AI, Professor Geoffrey Hinton, who is referred to as the Godfather of AI, he's warning that artificial intelligence could destroy us all within the next 10 years. And also, you might have seen some of the reports on this. Chinese hackers breached the US Department of Treasury. They stole documents from it. And it appears this ties with the broader campaign of the Chinese Communist Party right now to spy on people's cell phones, including Trump even, and to carry out other forms of cyber espionage against key targets in the United States. I'll be talking about these topics and more today, so let's get started. Now, first off, folks, you may soon be seeing engagement on Facebook. There might be more new users, but they may not be human users. Instead, it may be from AI bots. And you may not be able to tell whether or not a person is real or not. If you're having a conversation, you might be talking to a bot. And look, Meta, the company behind social media sites Facebook and Instagram, they've announced they're going to start bringing AI-generated characters to Facebook. And this is part of a move to increase engagement on the platform. They can't get real users, they'll get fake users. And you'll be able to engage with these bots on the platform. Now, this is raising some concerns, and one of the big concerns is over what's been referred to as the dead internet theory. Now, this used to be called a conspiracy, and much of today's internet, the idea is just bots and AI-created content, right? The theory with this is that the internet itself has basically lost engagement, and most of the engagement you're now watching is bots, AI-created content, and human users have either been disengaged on certain platforms or they've been censored. And so you don't really see many normal people talking about things. Now, there are also concerns that bot content could be used to drive different narratives or agendas. One of the big concerns here is that if you have a whole bunch of bots able to function on different social media sites and agenda X comes out, all the bots can promote that agenda, and it looks like people are demanding something, and you won't be able to tell whether it's legitimate or not, whether it's just a big company doing it or whether it's actual people doing it. Now, Financial Times said this. It said that Meta is betting that characters generated by artificial intelligence will fill its social media platforms in the next few years as it looks to the fast-developing technology to drive engagement with its 3 billion users. And I doubt they currently have 3 billion active users. Now, it notes that the Silicon Valley Group is rolling out a range of AI products, including one that helps users create AI characters on Instagram and Facebook as it battles with rival tech groups to attract and retain a younger audience. And notice that Connor Hayes, Vice President of Product for Engagement for Generative AI at Meta, said, quote, "We expect these AIs to actually over time, exist on our platform kind of in the same way that accounts do. They'll have bios and profile pictures and be able to generate and share content powered by AI on the platform." And he added, that's where we see all this going. Now, notice what the Financial Times said, that he had said that hundreds of thousands of characters like this, these ones that users can create, have already been created using its AI character tool, which launched in the US in July with plans to expand its access in the future. But most users have kept them private so far. So if you or somebody else has created one of these AI characters on Facebook or Instagram, it's possible that your little AI character could soon be used as part of this network. Now look, they'll be creating AI bots that function basically like normal accounts. And then these bots are going to be able to create their own content. They can also share that AI content on the platform. And so you could be watching bots with a picture and a bio, creating different maybe videos or pictures or content and then having discussions and engagement, but it's not real people. Now, some people believe this is already happening on a lot of platforms, although not a lot of it is being done by the companies themselves. There are different organizations that create bot users to give fake engagement to videos, to news articles. There are some concerns that some of the viral content you see on some of these big platforms are being driven just by bots. And there are concerns as well that some of the big narratives you might be hearing in the news are things that bots are pushing to give an artificial little boost to big stories so they become a lot bigger than they would have otherwise. Now, the piece notes that one of the concerns with having a platform running AI bots, capable of creating their own content, is mainly that these social media bots could be, as the Financial Times puts it, weaponized for spreading misinformation. And I know that misinformation is a tired term by now, but imagine, for example, look, we all saw what happened during the pandemic and so on, where certain views were suppressed and certain views were promoted, and it turned out that a lot of the suppressed views turned out to be the true ones, and a lot of the promoted ones turned out to be the fake ones. What happens when you have hundreds of thousands of very active online characters who are promoting things? What happens if a certain number of AI bots can read algorithms and look at engagement and just replicate that, and then some of the biggest influencers online are just fake bots being controlled by a major corporation? And then what happens if maybe for the financial interests or the shareholder interests of that corporation or the advertiser interests, they decide to push product A or narrative B or political, operation C? What happens when you have bots able to work as the factors to drive engagement in society? That's the big concern with this. But look, they also note that, given Meta's own rules on AI-generated content, that these could label some of these accounts as being AI. So there won't be, at least some of them will not be hidden. You'll be able to tell whether they're AI or not. The concern is that some people may start doubting whether people are AI or bots. And the accounts are going to have bios and profile pictures just like regular users, meaning they will be pretty deceptive to a lot of people. Now, if this whole idea sounds familiar, it probably is because, well, you've heard it somewhere. It might be because you've heard online rumors that this is already happening. Without a doubt, you do see some private organizations already doing things like this, only they don't tell you about it. And there's also what's known as I mentioned, the dead internet theory. And basically, this is an online internet theory that the majority of online content, as we know today, is already fake. That bots have flooded social media, that AI-generated content is now the bulk of what you're seeing, and that corporate algorithms work to suppress any real online engagement. That the bots are preventing us from having legitimate conversations with each other. And the conversation said this on it. It said the dead internet theory essentially claims that activity and content on the internet, including social media accounts, are predominantly being created and automated by artificial intelligence agents. It notes these agents can rapidly create posts alongside AI-generated images designed to farm engagement, clicks, likes, comments on platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. But it adds, the dead internet theory goes even further. Many of the accounts that engage with such content also appear to be managed by artificial intelligence assets or agents. And this creates a vicious cycle of artificial engagement, one that has no clear agenda and no longer involves humans at all. At least that's the conspiracy theory, which now seems to be coming about. Now, I can personally say, I would say that AI-generated content does, in fact, seem to be taking over the internet. I personally see AI-generated images all the time on social media, and sometimes it is hard to tell whether or not online videos are deep fakes, and I very frequently see social media accounts that I assume are AI. I see a lot of fake accounts, especially on Facebook. I see them a lot on Facebook, to the extent that I don't see many normal people engaging on Facebook these days. I see a lot of them. A lot of these are just scammer accounts. A lot of them are people in like India or China creating, fake accounts and then trying to get people on them and then scamming them. This is very common on the internet now. And we're probably going to see a lot more like this. You know, Hollywood studios, for example, they're already looking to make AI movies. Authors are looking to AI to quickly write books. You have a lot of lazy journalists using AI to just slap together news articles. It's becoming really, unfortunately, common. A lot of content, even created by humans, they're just using AI to do it because it's a shortcut. And then add to that, you know, online scammers and others who are intentionally using AI profiles and content to deceive people. I can tell you personally, folks, years ago, I knew an individual in Washington, and he wouldn't go on record with this, but he worked for a company that did this professionally. And what he was saying in Washington was that basically, he was one of the guys who worked at, he said there's two big companies in Washington, D.C. that do this. But what they do is they create fake online personas on, you know, it used to be Twitter, for example. They do these fake personas, and if a company wants to attack somebody, if a company wants to promote something, if a company wants to drum up online support or anger about something, they hire one of these Washington-based companies. And he said that one of the big things they do is, at the time, it was very hard to AI generate intelligent conversations because at the time there was not ChatGPT, but they could AI generate insults. And so they would have, you know, hundreds of thousands, or, you know, maybe not that many, like thousands of these fake accounts. And what they would do when they wanted to harass somebody is these companies would hire these guys to do it, and they would have these bots go and comment on maybe threads or leave response comments on posts, or even make direct messages to the individuals and just insult them. And so they'd tell them they hate them, they'd tell them they're stupid, they'd tell them things like this. And it would make the person become wary of posting anything. But in reality, all that was being drummed up by bots hired by a type of opposition research company. And so this was already happening even years ago, that this was going on. But what's really interesting now, I'd say, about Meta's plan is that this is a public statement they're planning to roll out. They're not trying to hide it. And the idea is to engage people. It seems they want to make it look like social media platforms actually have people talking and engaging on them. But it's fake. This is not real engagement. These are not real people. It's not real conversations. It's not people actually supporting you or agreeing with you. It's just bots. It's basically going to be like AI chatbots trying to start online conversations in order to breathe a type of artificial life back into these dying websites. And look, personally, I would say a lot of sites have already entered a kind of dead internet state. I don't think it's all of them, but you do have some that are like that. And I'd point to censorship, personally, as being the real cause of this. I think this is caused by censorship. Remember back in 2015 and 2016, when you could actually have political groups on Facebook? Do you remember that? When you could start up groups on Facebook and have actual, you know, conversations about the news and topics, and you could actually arrange to meet in person or even arrange protests. Do you remember how you used to be able to do that? Remember how a ton of those groups got banned because of political censorship? Do you remember when Reddit, for example, had groups like that, but they also got banned? Do you remember when YouTube had tons of channels where people talked about just about everything, and then a ton of those got banned? Well, I'd say that online engagement has fallen off in recent years because people cannot interact online like they used to. And what happens if you run a business based on user engagement and then you make it risky for people to engage? Well, people are probably going to stop using the business for the very thing it was created for, online engagement. And they're probably going to go elsewhere to a place that allows for engagement. And I'd say maybe this is why these platforms are looking to create the illusion that people still engage on them when they're not. Folks, in other news, speaking of AI, Professor Geoffrey Hinton, what he again referred to as the Godfather of AI, he's warning that artificial intelligence could destroy all of us within the next 10 years. And I assume he's not talking about these Facebook bots, right? Now, he talked about this during an interview on BBC Radio 4's program Today. Let me show you this. This is Telegraph UK. It says, artificial intelligence could wipe out the human race within the next decade. The Godfather of AI has warned. And it says Professor Geoffrey Hinton, who has admitted regrets about his part in creating the technology, likened its rapid development to the Industrial Revolution, but warned the machines could take control this time. Whereas in the Industrial Revolution, maybe we became slaves to the machines, and this time, maybe the machines could take over completely. And he said the technology had developed much faster than he expected and could make humans the equivalents of 3-year-olds and the AI grown-ups. He said that what the future held for life with technology would depend very much on what our political systems do with this technology. However you want to use it, right? That's going to determine which way it goes. In notes, however, Professor Hinton added, quote, "My worry is that the invisible hand is not going to keep us safe, so just leaving it to the profit motive of large companies is not going to be sufficient to make sure they develop it safely." In other words, if you make it so AI is being developed within the echo chamber of business competition and profit, they're going to push it as fast as they can, as far as they can, and as widely as they can in society until someone steps in and says this is getting dangerous. And look, personally, I would agree. I think AI is very dangerous to humanity. I don't like it one bit. And we don't know what it could develop into. The technology is like a Pandora's box, right? It's self-learning, self-developing, and we don't know which way it's heading. And the problem we have, though, on the other side of this, is that other countries are working on it. Our adversaries are working on it. And so it's unfortunately becoming a field of global competition. Countries are already weaponizing AI. It's already taking over some of the creative industries in some fields in music and entertainment. Art, for example, a lot of songwriting, for example. And also, there are professions that have already begun to depend on it. If you're a coder, if you write, internet code or something like that, a lot of people very heavily depend on AI, meaning it's already rooting itself within certain industries. Now, folks, on another point, though, there are some reports saying the AI revolution may already be reaching its limit, and some are suggesting that maybe it's already hit a wall and the rapid development phase is coming to an end. Now, CNN said this. It said some of the leading language models appear to be hitting a wall, according to at least 3 reports last week. See here. Tech news outlet, it said the information cited unnamed OpenAI employees who said that some of the company's researchers believe its next flagship AI model, Orion, isn't reliably better than its predecessor in handling certain tasks. And it's that Bloomberg reported, also citing 2 unnamed sources, that Orion fell short and is so far not considered to be as big a step up from OpenAI's existing models as GPT-4 was from GPT 3.5. And notes that Reuters reports that researchers at major AI labs have been running into delays and disappointing outcomes in the race to release a large language model that outperforms OpenAI's GPT-4 model, which is nearly 2 years old, according to 3 sources familiar with private matters. It also quoted Ilya Sutskever, an OpenAI co-founder who left the company in May, and said, quote, "The 2010s were the age of scaling. Now we're back in the age of wonder and discovery once again. Everyone is looking for the next thing." And then added, quote, "Scaling the right thing matters more now than ever." And Mark Anderson, it said, the venture capitalist who once penned an essay titled "Why AI Will Save the World," recently said on a podcast that the available models are, quote, "kind of hitting the same ceiling on capabilities." And even OpenAI CEO Sam Altman appeared to push back on these reports. He's kind of one of the ones pushing the opposite narrative, and he posted on X saying there is no wall. Now, in other words, we have seen technology kind of hit a cliff in some regards. Some people point to like the 2015s, even with, for example, special effects in movies and so on. They kind of hit the limit of believability. They kind of hit the limit on realism. And while you could say that movies these days and some of the AI content these days is significantly better, there's a limit to what you can do with it. And it seems that things are reaching that point. Now, again, we'll see whether that's true or not with AI. But if AI has in fact reached a limit, then some of the bigger concerns may at least be partially off the table, mainly in terms of us not knowing where the technology could be heading. Because now if it's reached the limit, we kind of know where it is and we can develop it within that space. If AI is going to remain just as a tool to maybe auto-generate online videos or images, and they're kind of quirky looking, there's always something wrong with them, or if AI is only used to generate music that honestly kind of starts to sound the same, then it's going to basically hit a wall in that regard. And again, as things currently stand, even though some AI is very convincing, you can kind of tell what's fake and what's not. If you read an AI-generated news article, you can kind of tell it was made by AI. If you watch or listen to an AI-generated song, you can kind of tell it's AI-generated if you listen to enough of them, because you start seeing common traits with them. Now, look, folks, in other news, Chinese hackers recently breached the US Department of Treasury and they stole documents. And this is raising some really big concerns in the United States. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. Folks, Chinese hackers are making their return, and Chinese hackers recently breached the US Department of Treasury and stole documents. Now look, it appears this ties in with the broader campaign of the CCP right now to try to spy on smartphones and spy on people's internet activity and carry out forms of cyber espionage against key targets in the United States. And this breach was announced by the US Department of Treasury as a major incident in a letter sent to lawmakers earlier this week on Monday. Here's more of what the letter says. This is from the Department of Treasury. It says, on December 8th, 2024, Treasury was notified by a third-party software service provider, Beyond Trust, that a threat actor had gained access to a key used by the vendor to secure a cloud-based service used to remotely provide technical support for Treasury departmental offices and users. With access to the stolen key, the threat actor, China in this case, was able to override the service's security, remotely access certain Treasury DO user workstations, and access certain unclassified documents maintained by those users. And it's based on available indicators, the incident has been attributed to a China state-sponsored Advanced Persistent Threat, APT, actor. Meaning, again, Chinese government, Chinese military, something like that. Now look, on this note, it seems that these are attacks targeted at specific individuals or specific organizations. I did a bit of research trying to figure out exactly why they're so concerned about this. I found that almost no news articles actually gave that context, but here's what I found. These Department of Treasury workstations, these allow the Department of Treasury to monitor things like banks, things, for example, like major companies on the stock market and things like that. This has more to do with international finance. And in my personal analysis on this, this very likely ties into the narratives of global trade war, the CCP trying to undermine the US dollar, the CCP trying to undermine the US banking system, and the Chinese Communist Party trying to mess with the stock market. They're probably trying to look for indicators of which way the US market is going, and they're trying to use that to, again, basically wage financial war on the United States. Keep in mind, too, that when it comes to the Federal Reserve, they're trying to mess with the money in order to not create a financial collapse in the United States. You can judge for yourself how well they're doing on that. But I can say no matter what, it is true that the US dollar is doing better than other global currencies. We can give them that. But that kind of information would give really crucial data on the actual state of things and what's not being shown to the public, from what I've gathered. Now, look, also remember this incident comes just after another recently made public cybersecurity breach came out from China's state-run backed Salt Typhoon hacking group, which targeted telecommunications companies like Verizon and AT&T. Now, we know the phone breaches under what they call Salt Typhoon included CCP hackers breaching the phones of Donald Trump and his VP Vance. And real quick, when they make these names like Salt Typhoon, these are threat identifiers. These are not the names the Chinese government would use for these. It's just nicknames that cybersecurity companies or governments would grant to these organizations to keep track of them. So they have names like Night Dragon and, Salt Typhoon and Fuzzy Bear and things like that. Those aren't the actual names these countries would use for it, but these are the names that are granted to them so we can keep track of which one is which. Now, look, there were also recent reports about TP-Link internet routers made in China. And if that sounds familiar, well, you might have one in your house. I had one. I didn't even know it. I threw it in the trash, actually, over the break, folks. I bought a new router. TP-Link routers are the most popular routers sold in the United States. In fact, about 64% of the U.S. router market. And now U.S. authorities are considering banning they're called TP-Link routers. They're talking about banning them because they're concerned they could be used in cyber attacks, that they might even have just ongoing access to them. This is one of the big things being raised right now. This is according to a report from Wall Street Journal. It said this: U.S. authorities are investigating whether a Chinese company whose popular home internet routers have been linked to cyber attacks poses a national security risk and are considered banning the devices. It says the router manufacturer TP-Link, established in China, has roughly 65% of the U.S. market for routers and homes and small businesses. It also notes that these are the top choices on Amazon.com. Powers internet communications for the Defense Department and other federal government agencies, meaning if they can access the routers, technically they can access a lot of the data going through those routers. And if the government, the Department of Defense, other government agencies are using them, anybody who has access to those routers can see stuff going through them, meaning it's all being spied on. We don't know if that is in fact the case with these routers. They're currently looking into it, and we'll get some answers on it. It does note, though, it said investigators at the Department of Commerce, Defense, and Justice Departments have opened their own probes into the company, and authorities could ban the sale of TP routers in the U.S. next year, i.e. this year, 2025, according to people familiar with the matter. And notes an office in the Department of Commerce has subpoenaed TP-Link, some of the people said. And notes as well that an analysis from Microsoft published in October found that a Chinese hacking entity maintains a large network of compromised network devices, mostly comprising thousands of TP-Link routers. The network has been used by numerous Chinese actors to launch cyber attacks. And it notes these actors have gone after Western targets, including think tanks, government organizations, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and Defense Department suppliers. Now, for those of you out there wondering which Wi-Fi routers are not from China, I did some research into this recently. ASUS, A-S-U-S, that's a Taiwanese company. Netgear, that's a U.S. company. You still need to check whether the routers they have are made in China, because some of them are. And there are a few other options as well. And so if you don't want to have a made in China or a Chinese company router in your house, there are other options for it. Now, aside from the risks of cyber attacks and cyber spies, there are also growing concerns over Chinese monopolies and potential antitrust violations in key industries, which also tie to spying. And the Justice Department is also now looking into a Chinese company that is buying up large swaths of the video game industry. If you or your kid is playing games, there's a good chance they may be playing one that's owned by this company, and it's possible that they may even have software installed on your computer that can monitor basically everything. Let me explain. The Justice Department said this. It said the Justice Department announced today that 2 directors of Epic Games, EPIC Games Inc., it said who had been previously appointed by Tencent Holdings, Tencent, resigned from the Epic board after the antitrust division expressed concerns that their positions on both the Epic, EPIC, and Tencent board violated Section 8 of the Clayton Act. It notes that Tencent owns a majority interest in Epic. The interlock was created because Tencent also is the parent company of a gaming competitor to Epic, which is Riot Games, and Tencent also decided to amend its shareholder agreement with Epic, EPIC, not Epoch, to relinquish its unilateral rights to appoint directors or observers to the Epic board in the future. This is the latest of the division's ongoing Section 8 enforcement efforts, which to date have unwound or prevented interlocks involving at least 24 companies. Now, I would say a probe into Tencent is necessary. In fact, I find it interesting that it's not gotten more attention. This China-based company has been buying up some of the largest companies in the world for the video game industry. They're buying up as much as they can, and they're trying to get some of the even larger companies under its belt now. Even some of the ones they haven't fully bought up, they have a lot of involvement in. And this has been raising some real concerns given the CCP's track record of forcing its authoritarian policies through companies that have foreign reach. And another big issue I would raise with this is that with Tencent runs a kernel-level anti-cheat software. In particular, the company's, quote, anti-cheat expert, or ACE software, is something that automatically installs with some of its games. So if your kid or yourself plays video games, this thing automatically will install alongside some of these games. And technically, this is made to monitor a user's computer or their smartphone for potential cheating in games. But here's the kicker with it. This software can reach the kernel level of your device, meaning it can monitor data at a level that even you cannot access. Every single thing that is done on that device can be seen at the kernel level. And not only that, but the software is active even when the person is not playing a video game. And so it's there constantly. Even if they uninstall the video game, it stays on the device unless you use different workarounds to get rid of it. And so there are some real serious concerns of the type of data that it monitors and whether Chinese Communist Party agents could gain access to that, given the way the CCP runs its data laws. And here's where it gets complicated. Just like a lot of Chinese companies would say, well, we don't do that, we don't monitor that, we don't access that. The concern is that because of the laws in China, the CCP requires companies to at least open some back doors to let them access the data. And so if you're a company in China and you refuse to let the CCP access the data, you could go to jail for it. And so a China-based company handling that level of access to any device should be raising some red flags, maybe in the literal sense, right? All right, folks, that said, hit the like button, leave a comment. Let's jump into some questions. Let's see here, first question from eVibes. You're saying these companies not long ago were demanding people's real names and even ID in some cases to verify you're not a bot. I remember that. What an interesting switch, right? I remember that actually. You know, it's actually been one of the ongoing conversations when it comes to you and I and everybody else having online engagement and so on. One of the big arguments for anonymity, the ability to not have to use your real name on the internet, is that people can have real conversations, you have a bit of privacy on the internet. Not everything you do and say can be used against you to get you fired from your job or whatever else. And frankly, you can look at what has happened to a lot of people who have done that. Go on Twitter, for example. Go on Facebook, for example, where a person's social media history can be used against them in court if they commit a crime or they get accused of a crime. Your entire chat conversations, everything you've ever said to any person, is now regarded as legal evidence in just about any criminal case. And so if you get sued, if a person, again, comes after you, if you go through a divorce, your text messages, your online conversations, everything you've posted on the internet becomes, basically part of the legal proceedings. If someone wants to ruin your reputation, they can go and find something you wrote on Twitter 10 years ago, maybe when you weren't in a very good state, and use it against you. You have major news organizations, when they want to ruin someone's reputation, they'll go and pick and cherry pick things and pull it out of context and then post it and make it sound like they said something else. And so there is a lot of danger of having your name out there. And some people would say, well, heck, don't say things you shouldn't be saying then, But I would add to that, in human history, as part of normal human engagement, it was never the case that every single thing you said was documented public record. This is something we've accepted as like normal reality that was never normal. I think in the past, people would be shocked to see that basically there are documented records of everything that is said in normal conversation. And this is part of the unfortunate kind of way that modern life has gone, where so much of our engagement is on the internet, and so many of our conversations are over text messages. There are records of everything we say and everything we talk about and everything we search for and everything that we're interested in. I think we've sacrificed basically our privacy. And, in the past, it was like, hey, illegal searches and seizures, look at the Constitution, you couldn't do that, which was your letters and so on. Government couldn't do that unless they had a warrant. But now it's like everything is documented. And not only is it documented, but it's public in some cases. And because a lot of it's with private companies, the private companies sell it. They sell it to advertisers, they sell it to government agencies. And so there are ways of espionage and spying and legal proceedings that have been opened up for this that people could have never even imagined in the past. And of course, that's also why some people say that maybe we should have online anonymity to protect us from that type of exposure. Maybe we should have some kind of data protection to make sure that when we have conversations, we're having real conversations, and we're not afraid of speaking our minds because we're afraid of, getting attacked for it. I can tell you, as a public figure, I don't have that. I don't have that luxury, and it is kind of concerning sometimes because there are people who want to destroy you if you speak your mind. And I mean, I can tell you personally, as somebody who has been attacked and censored and everything else, it's not that big of a deal. When they first hit you, it's kind of shocking, but you start to see that it doesn't have that much of an impact, at least depending on where you work. But I will say, though, that I think we've opened up we've opened an unfortunate chapter in human history that I hope is closed, because I don't believe people should have this level of transparency on all their private conversations. Another question, remember, be here now. You're saying, is this ultimately to encourage actual people to not be online then? It would actually be neat to not be so online. You're talking about, of course, the bots on social media. Yeah, well, I can say that I kind of stopped using Facebook because of the fake users. And because I started seeing that, I mean, look, I'm a public figure, so I have to keep social media. People who know me know that I'm a bit of a Luddite. When I'm not doing this show, I don't like to really be on social media. But my job requires me to, and so I've been working on getting more engaged. You see me on X, for example, a bit more these days. It is something I need to do because it's my job, right? But I can say that I see a lot of fake content. I get a lot of friend requests, and I look at the accounts, I'm like, I think this is a bot. I think this is fake. And you start seeing common traits with accounts like that. You're like, well, why don't they have any followers? Why do all their images kind of look the same between all these different accounts? And you're like, yeah, I don't quite trust this. I do think that this can create a lot of distrust even among legitimate users. People might wonder, well, did my friend get hacked? I'm sure many of you have seen this before. Maybe you've had a friend or family member whose account got taken over by foreign hackers, and they start asking you to invest in like cryptocurrency or something like that. I've seen stuff like this. There are scammers out there. There are fake accounts out there. There are hackers out there. And I think even aside from the censorship kind of complex, I think that people have seen so much of this that there has been a kind of legitimate disengagement from some of these platforms. And maybe it is getting us out there more and having some real engagement more. I'm a big fan, folks, of in-person engagement and joining clubs or groups. I mentioned before, I'm also looking into some stuff. I can tell you all, and I'm kind of like undercover with it. People don't know who I am. I joined an MMA gym recently. Actually, none of them know me, but I've been enjoying it. I've been getting into ham radio recently. I'm considering joining some groups where I live. People. I don't get recognized in New York and stuff, so it's kind of nice. People don't know who I am. I could just kind of do my own thing. But I'm very much in favor of joining groups and clubs or whatever else. Actually, I've been considering joining a jogging club. They have one in my neighborhood. I think these things are great. And actually, I think that person-to-person engagement is what's really missing in society. And I think that's probably why so many people are having like depression these days. We've lost connection like that. But I do think that it's reached a stage where people want that again, right? Let's see here. Michael Kolovovsky, you're saying, what a brilliant method to drive every convo in any direction you wanted to create support or disdain. Yeah. Yeah, so you're talking, of course, about the botnets on like Facebook and stuff. This is my theory on this. Okay, so I do think it is concerning in that if there's a future big narrative and somebody wants to drive it, you can use these botnets. But I would say that's only effective when you're not telling people that they're bots. I think as things currently stand, there are already a lot of bots pushing narratives. I think a lot of the drive with not even just like nefarious stuff, even with businesses trying to drive products, even with political camps trying to drive narratives, even with scammers, which are nefarious, trying to drive stuff, there are already a ton of bots active in doing this. And I would actually say that people kind of suspect it's like that, but when a big company comes out and just publicly says they're going to do it, that's when it goes from being a conspiracy to being reality, to being accepted truth. And by doing this, I think what Facebook and Meta overall, which includes Instagram, I think what they're doing with this actually could damage the existing bot networks by making people more aware of the issue. I think this will make people realize that a lot of online engagement may not be as legitimate as they think it is. And I think it will make people realize that they can't just believe something because it gets a lot of traction online. I think in some regards, this may actually wake some people up, so to speak. And they'll realize that they're living in the matrix, and they'll get out of that little matrix pod and realize they've been talking to bots this whole time. I can say personally, I mentioned the anecdote about the individual I met in Washington who runs some of these bot networks on behalf of political organizations or big companies, where they just they're insult bots. People hire these bot network guys to just insult people. After I learned that, I stopped taking online insults so seriously. I stopped trying to have online arguments as much because a lot of it is not real people. It's true. I mean, I'm not saying all of it is fake, but a lot of it is. A lot of it's fake. And so I don't bother to argue with people. I don't get insulted if somebody sends me, hate messages or something like that, because I know the game. A lot of it is fake. And a lot of it also is just people. I think when people are writing online, they're sometimes, not all the time, they're kind of in their own world, and they're writing more as like a train of thought. They might not actually be insulting you as a person. Sometimes they're insulting you as an idea. They're associating you with like a political thing they dislike or something they dislike in society. It's not you per se. It's the issue that they're so moved by usually. And I think you have a lot of that online, which has actually been dying off recently. Let's see. Realitysreal.com, you're saying the CCP will always try to cheat their way to prosperity, when ultimately they will facilitate their own destruction because reality catches up with everyone. I think we're actually reaching that level with the Chinese Communist Party. If the CCP were strong right now, they would not be as aggressive. If they were strong, this is the way they think, and this is where a lot of people get confused with them. If they were strong right now, they would not be creating an image of military strength. They would want to hide it. That's how they work. If they were strong right now, they would not be trying to sanction American defense companies, which ironically is going to have the opposite effect, where these companies are going to look for alternate sources of rare earth minerals. The CCP is kind of digging a deeper hole for itself because they're getting so aggressive and defensive in different areas. And I don't think it's a show of strength. I think it's a show of weakness. There's something I call the little dog. It's the little dog effect. If you ever look at dogs, which dogs are the most aggressive and angry and mean? It's often the little ones, right? The big dogs they tend to be a little more chill, right? Not all of them, depending on how you raise them. They tend to be a little more chill, though. It's the little dogs who are always barking. It's the little ones who are always making the noise. And I do think it's because they're compensating, right? You'll often find that it's oftentimes the weaker individuals who are oddly more aggressive. I don't know why that is. But I assume it's a type of compensation that they're doing. It's the little dog effect, I like to call it. I saw some of you asking if I am on ham radio yet. I'm not there yet. I'm studying. I have to get licensed. Once I get licensed, maybe I'll tell you all my name and we can chat on ham radio if I'm on there. But I'm still going through and learning it. And I play music too. I've actually been getting back into guitar as well. I think it's important to have hobbies outside of work, folks. Let's see here. Science Chick 72, you're saying, oh, the irony that the made in China dominance is thanks to USA opening it up decades ago. Wasn't it Kissinger? It was a few individuals. You could say it started with Nixon. And then, Nixon was trying to break the Soviet-Sino alliance. He wanted to break the alliance between the Chinese Communist Party and the Soviet Union, which he did. He took advantage of the Amur Valley conflict. China and Russia were actually going to war with each other in the Amur Valley. They had a very brutal conflict, actually. Russia, the Soviet Union, they wanted to use nuclear weapons on China, and the United States stopped them. We saved China from nuclear desolation during that time, forgotten part of history. And again, the beginning step of the whole engagement began there. You could say that Jimmy Carter kind of put it on steroids. I know he died recently. People are talking about his legacy. Some people say he did more after he died, after he stepped down from office. Some say that when he was in office, he actually did a lot of things that were kind of harmful to U.S. interests. Jimmy Carter was the one who, relinquished U.S. control of the Panama Canal. And the only effect of that is we have to pay like crazy amounts of money to Panama to use the canal we built. And we're the majority users of the canal, like 80% of it or something crazy, 70, 80%, something crazy like that. That's all it did to us. He's the one who changed the US defense agreement over Taiwan and made it so that we will not really commit to defending Taiwan. He's the one who got rid of US recognition as the Taiwanese government as being the legitimate government in exile of China, and made it so that we recognize the Chinese Communist Party instead. That was Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter did a lot of things like this, and he also remade U.S.-China kind of diplomacy and trade. And so one of the reasons why the Chinese economy came up, ironically, is because we were the ones who basically poured all the money into it. It wasn't communism that created the new China. It was U.S. capitalism, American capitalism created the new China, right? Which is kind of funny when you think about it. Because some people are like, communism works, look at China's economy. That wasn't built by communism, that was built by U.S. foreign investors, America offshoring almost all of our factories, and us giving them unfair trade agreements that let them undercut us on the markets. Capitalism is what made their economy rise, not communism. Far from it. But yeah, Jimmy Carter did a lot of that. And then, of course, Bill Clinton gave them most favored nation trading status. And even under Obama, he had kind of a policy of non-engagement with the CCP. It's been Republicans and Democrats. It basically continued up until COVID. Even Trump was looking to make trade deals with China. COVID-19 was the big breaker. And COVID-19 was when a lot of countries and a lot of foreign leaders began recognizing the hostility of the CCP. COVID-19 is when things flipped and people started seeing the nature of the CCP. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, Judy Akeem, you're saying, well, with the AI, will the AI have money to buy real people stuff? They might. You said if not, there goes the advertising market for social media. Who pays for ads without actual payoff? Actually, that's a really good point. They actually might get themselves into some hot water with advertisers, because advertisers can say that, I assume Facebook has a good legal department to deal with this kind of stuff. But if you're going to advertise on a platform and then you find out that like 90% of the engagement is from bots, do you still want to advertise there? I assume they'll have ways of demonstrating to advertisers the difference between legitimate engagement and bot engagement. But I do think they're going to have an issue where if they do not attract legitimate engagement, no one's going to want to advertise there. And I would also say that if the bots are driving most of the conversations and maybe even pushing ads, people are going to start seeing through it. It might be kind of there might be some novelty to it at first. Maybe people want to have positive reinforcement conversations with bots that have no personal thoughts of their own and just say, hey, good job on everything you do or say. Maybe some people like that. But I don't think people are going to actually enjoy having long-term conversations like that with bots. And I think also you're going to start having problems come about, especially if the bots tell people things that are harmful to them, which is already one of the factors coming about. And the companies themselves could be held liable if it starts to become problematic. I do think they're going to start losing a lot of money if they don't play this well. Angel761, you're saying the really unfortunate thing about this possibility is that younger generations aren't educated on these things, and so they are super vulnerable to being influenced or mentally or emotionally damaged. I would agree. And again, I think one of the big concerns with the bots is what is used to program how they think, what is used to program what they promote, what kind of advice would they give to kids. Because one of the issues with bots and AI is that a lot of the big companies, they limit where they can pull information from. They will only let them pull news from like the major corporate media, for example. And so imagine you're having conversations and the only basis of logic the person has is reading the New York Times every day. Do you think that person is going to be reasonable? Probably not, because like New York Times has become a communist, socialist, rag basically. You know what I mean? They're going to believe in every modern social movement. They're going to think that everything they don't agree with is a conspiracy theory. They're going to think that any conservative is Hitler. You know what I mean? They're going to push all these crazy transgender programs. They're going to be like, brainwashed, frankly. And so if you have someone and their entire worldview is within that circle, and they're giving advice to people based on only thinking within that little box, you are going to have some problems. You know the Chinese, the CCP's AI system, do you know how they educate it? Get this. The AI system the CCP is building is educated only on Xi Jinping thought and communist thought. And so imagine first off the bots we have, which are like DEI and globalism, spokespersons, right? In China, you have bots that only think like Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party. And I mean, that sounds terrifying as well. But if you start thinking of what these bots are going to be like when they roam free on the internet, that's what people are going to be talking to, I do find it concerning. Imagine if China builds a smart city, which they're doing, and they make the thing run by artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence is running on Xi Jinping thought, and Xi Jinping didn't graduate from like middle school, right? Imagine how that city is going to run, folks. You know what I mean? Let's see. DC's Bees, you're saying it takes something like 5 times the electricity for that AI to do that search for you. Yeah, which is crazy. The AI systems, they eat up an insane amount of electricity, which is funny because the same companies running the AI and relying on the AI are the same ones trying to preach to us about saving energy and caring about the environment. Some of these companies, they're talking about bringing back nuclear energy just to power their botnets. Imagine that. Why don't they get a bunch of solar panels to power their botnets, since they're the ones preaching this to us, right? Why aren't they creating giant wind farms to run their bot networks when they're trying to make us do that? But they, for some reason, are not. Why are they looking to nuclear energy? Maybe it's because nuclear energy is more effective and cheaper and runs better and cleaner. Maybe that's why, I don't know. But they sure seem to be interested in it, right? On another note too, though, even in terms of the server stations, it takes a lot of energy to cool them. These things run extremely hot. And Trump's talking about buying Greenland. One of the benefits with Greenland, or Canada for that matter, is that it's very cold, as you may imagine, in the far north. And if you build your server stations in areas like that, it costs way less money to cool them. And so that's one of the reasons why some companies are looking to that. And it's actually one of the big economic sectors some of these countries are looking for as well. Norbert Nobull, you're saying, we don't want a change in Hollywood. We want Hollywood to be of the past. Yeah. I think that's the case too. So kind of switching topics, when you talk about Netflix and Disney and Hollywood overall, you might see that some of these big companies, these big corporations, they're starting to move away from the kind of crazy, I don't even know what you call it, DEI type policies. Disney recently, I think Pixar, they actually pulled out some of the trans themes from some shows. Netflix is dropping some of the narratives that were more on like the extreme far left. You see a lot of these big studios dropping those things. Now, some people would argue maybe the companies, I'm sure a lot of employees believe in this stuff. I know a lot of employees are unhappy about the changes. But the companies themselves, do you know what they care about? They care about money, and they care about investors. And some people would argue that they were only doing those things in the first place because they believed that's what the market demanded. That's what they believed they had to do to get business, and what they had to do to get investment from some of the major investment firms. And the major investment firms were enforcing those policies, saying we would not give you money unless you had these policies. And so some would argue that the companies never really believed in this stuff, that it was all about profit from the get-go. And one of the old examples people would use is whenever you had Pride Month, you'd have on the American social media, all the different corporations would switch their emblems to the pride flag, right? The big rainbow flag. Europe, they'd switch it all to the pride flag. All over the place, they'd switch to the pride flag. And then you go to like the Dubai or United Arab Emirates version, and they didn't change it. And they're like, why are they not changing it in that country? Probably because they'll get kicked out, or probably because they think that it would not be good for business, which is what it was really about in the first place for a lot of these individuals. It was always about getting investment, right? Now, that said, now that the market has changed, and I think viewers and online users have rejected a lot of these programs to a massive extent, to the point where even a lot of movies that probably would have really succeeded flopped because they had these things that people didn't want their kids watching. Take, for example, the Buzz Lightyear movie. I would have taken my daughter to see that. But then they added in like a gay kissing scene, and I don't want to go watch that personally. I don't care what people do, but I don't want to watch it. If you do things like that, then yeah, people are not going to want to bring their kids to it. They want to have kid-friendly content. And what happens when people disengage? Well, the business goes out of business. I actually would say that we've reached an interesting stage when it comes to films and entertainment and so on. Because do you know what's happened these days? When they first started doing it, it was controversial. People talked about it online. They'd post about it on Twitter or X. It was conversations ever. The media were writing about it. These days, it's like crickets. They're like, oh, I didn't even know that movie came out. They made that movie? How did I not hear about this? You know why? It's because people don't even care anymore. We don't even care enough to get outraged anymore. It's just like we just don't want to go see it. You know what I mean? And I think the companies are recognizing that people just have disengaged from it to the point where a movie's going to flop and nobody even cares. It doesn't even make headlines anymore because nobody cares. And so I think they are trying to save themselves. So the problem is some of these companies have so badly damaged their reputations by going against what people want. And then when people tell them, we don't want that, actors and actresses and directors insult the audience and call them Nazis and so on. It's like, well, what did I do? I just don't want to see your stupid movie, People start having a bad impression of the brand itself, and the company starts dying. And I think that's the stage we're at now. In my opinion, the king is dead, long live the king. I think something better will replace these companies. I think people are still going to want to watch movies, but maybe not from those companies. And I do think the vacuum being created right now will allow new competitors to come to the market, and hopefully they're better ones. All right, folks, that said, Happy New Year. I hope you had a good day yesterday. It's 2025 now, in the first Crossroads episode of 2025. Join me tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time for another episode. And folks, thank you so much for being here. Please don't forget to share this episode. Help us get the word out. And as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.